Hey folks, Cornell with YouTube Fishing Vids. It's about that time of the month, November Mystery Tackle Box Pro Slam Attempt / unboxing. I'm out here on my local lake. It is an absolutely gorgeous cloudy day. About mid-40s we're looking at today. It was pretty cool this morning, maybe around 40. So conditions are great. It's still that challenging fall bite. We still have a moderate stain to the water now that the turnover is still in process. The turnover is actually slowing down, so hopefully things are stabilizing a little bit. So we might have a chance to make something happen today. But if not, we're going to find out how to rig all this stuff. So let's see what the Mystery Tackle Box Pro made available for me for the month of November. First off the bat, Lucky Craft. Who can't love Lucky Craft in your Mystery Tackle Box Pro box? What is this? This is pearl threadfin shad. That's a CB 250F. So from what I know Lucky Craft fairly well, this is I think about a 5 to 6 foot diver. So with some of the suspended fish out here and this matted muted pattern on a cloudy day, that's going to be hopefully a killer if they want to bite it. So let's just see what we can do with a crankbait today. So that's a great item to have in the mystery tackle box for the month of November. Another crankbait. This is the Echo 1.75. I've seen this in a couple other videos. This is the Rattle Trap. You know, Rattle Trap, one of the #1 lipless crankbaits on the market. They've got a little square bill, and that's a red crawfish pattern. So a little more shallow diver. That's 3 to 5 feet, and actually really close range to that standard crankbait by Lucky Craft, but it's a square bill, so I'm going to maybe be able to bounce that off some cover, use that square bill to my advantage to get that reaction bite. Red crawfish, another great pattern for cloudy days. So a little bit darker pattern, a nice bright pattern, so hopefully we'll get some attention from some of those maybe more aggressive fall fish. All right, what else we got in here? Impact Lures Structure Guard black and blue jig. Oh gosh, guys, clear water. Do you use a black and blue jig in clear water? Sure, when it's cloud cover, so it's dark. We've got dark skies. So black and blue jig can work anytime. It's a great color. Probably one of the best colors you can have in a jig in all conditions, with the exception of super clear water and bright sunny skies, but ½ ounce. So I got a ½ ounce structure type flipping jig. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that on. I'm going to do what I can to get a nice little trailer, maybe trim it up, get it a little bit more finessey, and pitch in some wood and see if I can come up with something on a jig. That would be great. All right, now we've got some soft plastics in here. So standard super classic Buddha bait. That is a 8-inch, I think it's an 8-inch. That's pretty long green pumpkin worm. So worms, you know, a little bit of a challenge this time of year. Not the most standard bait to throw during the fall, but there's always something you can do with a worm, from flipping to dragging across some points and flipping into some weed lines and things like that. The weeds are now breaking up so good. There's all these little holes and all these fish hanging off the edges of them. So if I cut that down, maybe make that a little more finessey, I could probably find something to do on a green pumpkin. One of the best colors in the bass fishing world you can use. So let's see what happens with a Buddha bait worm. And a little more soft plastic in here. This is going to be interesting. Check this out. Probably one of the better options for the day. Mad Yabby by River to Sea. I've got a creature bait. Check that out. That's a electric watermelon. So this is going to be a really interesting deal. So we've got a 5-inch creature bait. Anything from just rigging it Texas rigged. You can end up doing that as a trailer, cutting it down. A lot of cool stuff you can do with something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this creature bait out here, try and emulate all these crayfish that are running around trying to dodge these fall bass. So Mad Yabby. You guys know what a yabby is? That's what the Australians call crawfish. So let's see if we come up with the Mad Yabby today. Last piece and last item in the mystery tackle box for the month of November. Charlie's worm Super Bowl shaky head jigs. Really light, 1/16 of an ounce. Super finessey. This is a great little item to have, guys. If you're fishing up really shallow, you're in a little bit of weeds and you want to go throw a shaky head on a really itty bitty worm, that's a really good option. So I'm going to throw that shaky head out there on something real finessey, see if we can come up with something. That might be one of my best options today on a finicky finessey lake like today. So hang tight, guys. At the least, we're going to be rigging up some stuff showing you exactly how all these baits work with the setups I've got, to give you an idea how I'm throwing them, and if we're lucky, we'll get a couple bass. Hang tight. Thanks for joining me. Okay folks, as I slowly make my way down the lake here to find my first spot, it's crankbait time. It's definitely a time to cover some water. So on this beautiful late fall day, last week in November, out comes a Lucky Craft. So we're going to break out this Lucky Craft and see what we can do. So we've got perfect conditions to cover water with this little ripple on the water. And these conditions, 51-degree water temperature. There should be some fish willing to bite. I've been marking fish on the way down the lake here, some suspended, some on weed lines. There's, again, just fish everywhere. So covering water this time of the year is key. So time to get on the Lucky Craft. All right, and you guys have seen this before. I'm going to show you again. I am a proponent of using snaps on my crankbaits. I've done this in my last MTB slam attempt video. I'm going to do it again. I've got my split ring pliers here. I'm just going to take off that. I'm going to just take off that split ring, and I'm going to use a snap. I'm going to use my hyper welded owner quick snap, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to have quick interchange, and, you know, I'm going to use the same rod and reel setup that I have here for my rattle trap square bill. So again, there we go, hyper welded quick snap coming on. I've already got it tied on to my 10-pound test line here. I'm about to show you this rod and reel setup too. So once we do that quick on without having to tie the actual bait on, these hooks are sharp. Oh, every time I touch them, they stick in. All right, so there we go, hyper welded quick snap. Game on. I'm tied on just like that, guys. That's simple with that awesome little Lucky Craft CB250F specifically. All right, so here we go. This is the setup. This is what I'm fishing with. This is my St. Croix Avid rod. Now this rod is almost identical to the rod I'm using on some of my pull baits, my spinner baits, my chatter baits, my swim baits, but this happens to be the 7-foot medium heavy moderate action. So this is rated for 10 to 20 pound test, 3/8 of an ounce to 1 ounce. This is a 1/2 ounce crankbait, guys. So a little bit beefier rod, you know, than some of those little small, more whippy stick type of rods that I throw on my small crankbaits, on some of my more finessey crankbaits. For this CB250, a 1/2 ounce, this is a great rod. So I've got that on 10-pound test. I've got it on my Team Lose Light LFS series speed spool. So that's exactly the setup. This is 10-pound test Seaguar and Viz X fluorocarbon. So this is going to be a perfect package. Got the owner hyper welded quick snap, so that interchangeable bait's going to happen in just a couple seconds when I just choose to use this exact same rod for that square bill. But let's go ahead and cover some water. Let's see if we can get something going on this crankbait. So whether I catch a bass or not on this crankbait, one of the things I'm at least going to offer you guys is the concept of where I'm throwing it, why I'm throwing it here. I've marked fish off this point. There's fish on these weed edges, right where this little gravelly, rocky bank drops off. There's a little open area where the weeds have died back, and then there's a weed edge running parallel to the shore. At the point where the weed edge stops and drops off, it drops sheer drop in about 17 to 20 feet of water. Right on the edge of where that weed drop is, down about 5 to 10 feet, there's a few fish stacked up. So basically with this crankbait running 5 to 6 feet deep, I'm throwing right parallel to that weed edge. I'm dragging it right along the weed edge where those fish should be, and hopefully if they're aggressive enough, they'll pick it up. The same thing's going to go for working my way around the point. As I work my way around this point, that same concept's happening. You got the rocky, gravelly point. You've got an open area where the weeds have died back. You've got that dying off weed edge, and then the sheer drop beyond that weed edge going down into about now 21.8 feet of water. So as I work my way around this point, I'm going to basically be paralleling this crankbait along all the edges of these weeds. And that's pretty much with this depth range the best I could do to be in the zone where I think the fish will be. There's plenty of times where you can fish way off the point, open water in 20-some feet of water where the fish are suspended down maybe 10-15 feet or shallow, and you'll pick up a couple suspended fish. But generally those suspended fish out there, a bigger crankbait's not always going to be the case unless they're really aggressive. So I'm going to work these points, I'm going to work these weed edges off that little drop and see if I can pick one up. But stay tuned, let's see if we can pick one up. Otherwise we're going to move on and see what else we can come up with. This is just a really slow retrieve. The water's cold, folks. This is not a real tight wiggling crankbait. It's got a pretty good kick to it. So with a really slow crawl and a pause, a really slow crawl and a pause, that's pretty much all you want. This time of year with these cold waters, generally you're going to be throwing a lot of flat-sided crankbaits, shad wrap type baits, really tight wiggling baits in colder water. But if you do have something with a little bit of a bigger kick, just slow it down a little bit. Just do a nice creepy crawl, a nice pause, maybe a twitch every now and then, and you might pick up a fish that wants to eat. So hopefully that's what's going on. That's the basics to a simple cold water retrieve. All right, folks, I've given the Lucky Craft crankbait a little run for its money. Nothing biting. It's going to be a challenge. I knew it would be a challenge on that moving bait right there. This is just not quite the type of thing that's going on right now, but I'm gonna do a little switch up, guys. Here it goes. Quick snap coming undone. There goes the Lucky Craft crankbait. I'm going to break open the square bill. I'm on this backside of a bridge, so I got this rip wrap right here, and I got a little bit of hard cover, some fallen trees in the water, some things. I'm going to bounce that square bill off, and hopefully I'll pick one of them up. So let's go ahead and rig this one up real quick. Watch how easy this is. Just open the package. Again, the same thing though, guys. I've got that quick snap on, so that O-ring is coming off. So I'm going to reach in my pouch here, grab my little O-ring pliers. And these normally, of course, would be off, and once they're off, it's a done deal. You're not going to be dealing with taking them off again if you're using the quick snaps, because your quick snaps are going to be already on there, and your O-rings are going to be off. It's going to be interchangeable. And something real important, folks, if you didn't think about this idea, you know, again, I'm going to repeat this. A lot of people are asking if these are snap swivels. These are not snap swivels. These are snaps. They're just a snap replacing the O-ring, which makes your the speed of which you're interchanging your baits that much quicker. But on top of that, I don't know if I mentioned it in any of my recent videos, but guys, when you're tying on a tiny little quick snap like this, it's a one-time deal. So think about how many feet of line you're losing when you're retying a big, one foot of line, 6 inches line, however much line you're using to wrap around, do your Palomar knots and any other knots that you're using. You're saving so much line on your spool. And it's real important to know that your spool needs to be completely full to get the full effect of your gear ratio, to get a longer cast, to get everything you need to get out of your reels. You need to have a full spool of line. So the more you're basically cutting down your line by retying over and over again, you're basically losing all that line and losing money ultimately. So if you want to save a little money and you don't have the means to have big spools of line to constantly re-spool your baits, or your spools, that is, just go ahead and get these snaps. Take off those O-rings, get your snaps on there, one-time deal, just retie as needed if that line gets weak or if you ever get frayed. But all you're doing is tying your knot to that little hyper-welded quick snap, and it's on. There we go. Square bill. Red crawl. Let's bounce this off some of these rocks on this riprap and bang it off some of this wood, see if we can come up with something. See how this little number looks in the water. I haven't seen one of these swimming before. Let's see what this is all about. All right, running nice and true. All right, red crawl. Check that out. Mustad triple grips. That's awesome. Okay, there's a nice piece of wood right there. Let's see what we can do. All right, guys, I've given the lipless, the square bill a run for its money. I'm gonna go ahead and switch up. I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can do with some other baits here. I've been staring at this black and blue jig, and I've been looking at this wood coming up along this shoreline, anxious to throw that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. That's gonna be easily interchanged. If I come up with some water where I can just add that snap to the Lucky Craft crankbait and then maybe put that square bell back on, I will. So the slam's not over with those yet. I'm just going to change up as I work these banks and work these situations. I'm going to break out my next setup, and I'm going to go ahead and get that jig on. Hang tight. All right, so I was out here recently playing with all kinds of stuff, and this is one of the baits I had on, a real finessey little green pumpkin finesse jig here with the little Rains ring crawl trailer. I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to break open this little M-Pack Lures structured jig, this little flipping jig they've got in black and blue. So let's see what this thing's all about. Up close and personal. Great looking skirt. All right, cool. Oh, guys, I did not even realize it's one of those gigs. Check it out. This is the Structure Guard Snagless. That's that really unique new guard that's going to basically slip out of the way when you get that fish on. It's going to work to the side, and you're going to end up getting your fish. So that's a really unique idea. I'm not very familiar with that, so we're going to throw that and see how that guard situation works, so we can get ourselves a fish on a jig. All right, so the rod and reel. What do I got here? Okay, this is my Zodius Shimano. This is my 7-foot. I think it's a little longer than 7 foot. This is a 7'2" medium heavy Zodius Shimano rod. So the medium heavy, it's rated from 10 to 25 pound test, and I've got on here 15-pound test in VizX fluorocarbon. So we're gonna go ahead and let's set that up. I've got the, let's see, I'm stuttering today. I don't know what's going on. Speed spool. This is my speed spool. This is my Pro Mag, Pro Z actually. So this is the Pro Z I got on here by Luz. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this on there, see what we can come up with, and I'm gonna maybe trim back the trailer a hair, or the skirt that is, just to finesse it up and find myself a nice trailer to add to it, see what we can do. It's just my simple Palomar knot. Really cool jig head design. It's kind of like inset line tie. There we go. All right, so we're game on with the jig. All right, so the jig is tied on. Let me trim it back. All right, so there we go. Let me see what we're dealing with here. Is this skirt? I don't think we're going to really trim that skirt back at all. Keep in mind, guys, the more you trim back a skirt, the less volume the bait has, so the quicker the fall. It's cold now, so we want a real slow fall. Not a real slow fall, but we want that bait to fall a little more slowly than usual. So we're going to go ahead and work it just the way it comes straight out of the package. Now I'm going to see what I can find when it comes to a trailer. Hang tight. All right, folks, so just found out this little weed guard concept is called their roll guard. So we got a roll guard here, and in order to get your trailer on, you actually just have to pop that out. Watch this. So you just basically pop that out. That little pop comes off, And I've got a Rains ring craw trailer in green pumpkin. I'm going to go a little mix matched here. I'm going to go blue black jig, which I think is great for this cloud cover. It'd actually be really good, and a green pumpkin. So a little bit of a off color idea, just do something a little bit different and get something a little more natural on top of the black and blue. So this Rains ring craw trailer is going on. So I'm just going to feed that on, and this ring craw, this trailer, these claws and these pinchers actually float, so it comes right up off the surface. Once it hits the bottom, those claws just kind of come up and dance and get in a real nice defensive position, but at the same time does not actually have an overbearing flap to it. So when the water's cold and you're trying to keep those craw trailers from flapping too much and looking a little bit too active, you want a real subtle presentation. This little Rains ring craw is an awesome package. So to reinstall, this is pretty easy. You take this little peg that was on there, put it right back on. So I've got that reinstalled on there, kind of like what you do on a trailer hook on a spinnerbait, something like that, and then you just pop this little number right back in there. And that's it. Check out that concept, guys. So basically the roll guard's just going to roll out of the way when it's time to get that bite. In the meantime, it's hopefully going through the structure and going through the cover really well. So there it is, guys. Check that out. Black and blue with my Rains ring craw green pumpkin trailer. Let's go ahead and scent that up. I'm going to add some crawfish scent to it. I'm going to start pinching some wood and some cover over here. Let's see what I can do. Okay, guys, after watching the action of this bait in the water a little bit and seeing the the fall rate and seeing how quick or slow it's falling reasonably slow. It's not going to hurt to trim this skirt back a little bit. I feel like those skirts are just getting a little bit in the way of those flappers. They're not flapping much, but I want those flappers to get up and dance really good and not have that skirt hinder that action. So also just, it's so tough today. It's going to be tough. I know it's going to be a hard day fishing, so I'm going to get as finesse as I can with a full-size jig and trim her up. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that up a little bit like so. Not much, but it definitely is going to help. It's definitely going to help those flappers in that trailer give it a little bit more action. And now we've got a little bit more compact size, not much, but every little bit helps. Let's see what we can do. Okay, folks, after a painful hour to hour and a half worth of crankbait, square bills, black and blue, green pumpkin trailer jigs, it's time to switch gears. I'm going to break out some of these soft plastics in the Mystery Tackle Box Pro and tie some of those on. I'm going to Texas rig them. I'm going to use this exact same setup, this 7'2" medium heavy Zodius rod and the 15-pound test fluorocarbon to Texas rig a couple of these soft plastics that we've got in this Mystery Tackle Box Pro. So let's cut this off. Time to rig up. Okay, guys, I've got two soft plastics options in the Mystery Tackle Box Pro box for the month of November. So we've got the 8-inch green pumpkin worm and we've got the little Mad Yabby. So if you take a look at these baits, I'm going to open this worm up, for example. I'm going to show you exactly how this goes when it comes to Texas rig. I'm going to Texas rig these, and I'm going to actually set up my Texas rig to work for both of them. So you've got to be conscious of exactly what kind of bait you're dealing with when you're Texas rigging when it comes to the type of hook you use. All right, so let's see what we got here. Let me take a look at the body size of these baits. All right, so we've got the skinny, not reasonably, it's a meaty bait. It's an 8-inch worm, but if you look at the bodies of these, they're really not that much. It's a little bit wider this way, but this way it's not that thick. So they're about the same thickness this way, wider that way, but that means I'm going to actually be able to use the exact same Texas rig setup for each of these baits. I'm probably going to cut this down about 1 inch. Let me do that right now, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to go for the full 8 inches of that. So when I start fishing this, I'm going to have about 7-inch worm here. So let's do that. So we cut that little tip off the worm. All right, 7-inch worm, 5-inch yabby. All right, here's my terminal tackle tray. Got my terminal tackle tray, just a little day bag of what I usually do here when I go out on a day of bass fishing. Let's open this up and take a look what kind of selection I have to work with. All right, so check it out. Got all kinds of hooks, got all kinds of terminal tackle in here. I'm going to trade spots with you, Mystery Tackle Box Pro Box. You stay down there for a minute. All right, so what I got here is a selection of hooks. Now here's my two baits. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm not going to grab for example, extra wide gap hooks. That extra wide gap is absolutely not necessary for that thin bodied bait. There's a lot more hook there, a lot more to get caught up into weeds and caught up into brush and standing timber, if that's what I'm going to do. I'm not necessarily going to be flipping this bait. So there's your flipping hook. Okay, the flipping hook isn't going to be necessary and also has a pretty wide gap for these type of baits. So there's a lot of meat there in the hook to get caught up in things. What I am going to do is I'm going to actually take a straight shanked worm hook. All right, so you got straight shank worm hook option. This is a pretty big one. This is a 5/0 with a little bit wider gap. That might be a little bit big for these baits. And yes, these are little foam covers I do. If you see how I'm managing all my tackle here, these little foam covers, a few people have been asking about what I'm doing here. These foam covers are actually coming from replacement treble hook packs. You know, if you buy a pack of treble hooks, you see how some of those treble hooks come with those little foam deals. So basically I just take those foam deals out of those treble hook replacement treble hook packs, come into little squares, and how awesome is that to keep your baits perfectly organized, set them right in your tackle tray, perfectly organized, right guys? So that's what those are. In some cases I've got some black ones here, these black foams. These actually come from the Jackall Gantarelle, that big swim bait. The back of the package where the Jackall Gantarelle has a big chunk of foam back there keeping it in place and keeping it tied down. That's what those are. So depending on the situation, you might find that there's a lure that has some foam, or you might have some replacement terminal tackle type things, or replacement hooks, I meant to say. That's where those foam ones come from. So yeah, that's a great way to manage your tackle if you wonder what those were. All right, so what do we got here? Approximately a 4/0 straight shanked regular gapped hook and a 5/0 wider gap straight shank worm hook. I'm feeling like this yabby might not need much more than this little. See, we're just going to line up. Let's take one out of there. What am I doing? Let's take that out. All right, so what do we got here? Yep, that's going to be just about right. So I got this wide gap, I got this moderate gapped worm hook that I'm going to throw on here. Let me just line it up and see if it's working. So we're going to go straight in the tip. It's got a nice firm head on it, so that's actually really good. It's going to come out right about there. I think this is a VMC is what it is, and of course it's going to go back up in the eye once it's said and done. You know what? That is actually not quite as big a gap as I'd want. So you know what? I'm not going to use this worm. This worm is going to actually be a little bit too small for what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to bump it up. I think this 5/0 straight shanked wider gapped hook is actually going to be ideal. So when I get this set up, it's going to probably be the perfect length for a 5-inch bait, which it looks like it is. It's going to have a little bit meatier bite to it, but not as big a bite as a flipping hook or a extra wide gap hook. So of course that's going to be a no-brainer also for your worm. So this is going to be a great worm hook. So I'm going to set up my Texas rig. I'm going to set that to work for both of these soft plastics, and we're going to get our little finessey soft plastic game on here and some of the weed edges and some of this standing timber, so we can get one of these finicky, frustrating fall bass to bite. Hang tight, let's rig it up. So this is what I'm looking for. All right, that's about a 5/16 ounce tungsten. It's going to go straight in. That's simple. I'm going to get my Palomar knot tied on to my 5/0 straight shanked worm hook. It's a wide gap straight shanked worm hook. All right, there's a Palomar knot coming tight. All right, so we got the worm hook locked on. Now we got our free floating tungsten weight there. So I am actually going to peg that. So I'm going to go ahead and peg that with my little peg sticks here, little peggets. That's a pretty easy deal. That's going to go up, through, and out. All right, so that's that. Little trimmers again. I'm going to trim that off flush about there, and I'm going to pull it through just enough for that little bit of rubber to go even with that little indentation in that sinker. So we're going to trim that off on the head. All right, so there we go. We got our pegged Texas rig, perfect peg Texas rig with our 5/0 straight shanked wider gap straight shanked worm hook. And I'm going yabby first, guys. I am going yabby. That little beauty's going on, so let's go ahead and get that Texas rig. It looks like on the top it's got a little bit of an opening there, so that's going to be the spot where your worm's going to come out. Obviously, without having to Texpose it, it's going to work out pretty good. So that means it's going to come out this side, so I'm going to come in through the back. So I'm going to go straight in. Really good, hard, firm plastic there. That's going to hold really well, obviously. So I'm going to go in just at that first crease there, and it's going to come out dead center through, and bring that up just a hair over the eye, and let's see how perfect this works out. This is absolutely a perfect setup, guys. So I'm going to have this come out straight, so I'm going to come in just about perpendicular straight in the top of the head, right out in that little gap there. Check that out, man. That is absolutely money right through those ridges. But look where that hook is. See how the hook just pops right out? Don't have to Texpose it, anything. That's absolutely a perfect Texas rig situation. Plenty of bite right there for the fish to get jacked up and hooked. And then that straight shanked worm hook is just not out as far as extra wide gap, so it's going to come through the weeds really nice. It's going to come through the cover really nice. So there's your perfect Texas rig. Okay guys, soft plastics time. Let's see if we can get something to bite on one of these awesome baits out of the Mystery Tackle Box Pro for the month of November. We got our Texas rig on. Hang tight, let's see what we can do. Okay, so I scooted across the lake from the one little pocket that I was in on the opposite side. Came over here to this point where there's some hard cover. Again, I got a point and I got dying off weeds. So it's a perfect scenario to drag a little creature bait slash mad yappy across the bottom. So let's see what this guy can do. Again, I scented it up with some crawfish scent, which is a big deal this time of year. So put some scent on your bait, so get them lethargic bass and maybe take a whiff and bite on. So throw some hard cover here for a little bit, see if I can beat up some banks and beat up some dying off weed edges and see what we can do. All right, I have creeped and crawled this creature bait by river to sea, this yabby deal, and nothing. I've got a buoy mark out here. I've got fish, guys. I know they're here. I know this lake. They're just not biting. I'm telling you, this transition, this turnover definitely shuts things down for a while. Definitely a great time to come out and challenge the Mystery Tackle Box for the month of November. But if we're learning anything out of this, guys, we're learning how to rig them, learning how to get their setup together for the select baits that come out of the box. But what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and take that 7-inch worm, which is now a 7-inch worm, and we're going to rig that back up on the same exact hook that I just took that yabby off of. So here we go. This is going to be a 7-inch green pumpkin worm, Texas rig. Just that head has been bit off just about an inch, just up till about the bend, and the same deal. There's a pretty good scent on them, very garlicky scent to these Buddha baits. So it's going to go up over the eye, and you'll see how perfect this hook is for this Texas rig. So we're going to go in just like you see it, scrunch it down, work it up. There is a perfect, absolutely perfect Texas rigged worm. We're going to slide that through the same weed edge right here. I see tons of fish on it. I mean, they are just sitting there stacked up right along the edge of it. So I'm going to throw that buoy marker, creep and crawl that worm right through the weeds, and see if we can pick one up. All right, folks. This is brutal, but it's not impossible. I mean, there's a chance that we can pull something off today. It's going to take the secret weapon. No guarantees, but I promise you, if there's anything that can work out of this box, there's going to be one thing. Let me break out this rod reel combo. You all have seen it before, but there's my drop shot special rod. And if you guys have been seeing any of my past videos, you know what's tied on. The Ned rig. It's coming off because it's a Mystery Tackle Box Pro Slam attempt. So I'm taking off this Ned rig, and we've got 6-pound test leader on here in VizX Seagar, and we've got in this Mystery Tackle Box Pro box some terminal tackle. If you remember what it was ultra finessey. Where are they at? There they are. Here they are, guys. Charlie's Worms Super Bowl shaky heads, 1/16 of an ounce. Look how slick Comet is behind me. 6-pound test line, 10-pound test Sunline SX1 braid. This will get down there, but what am I going to put it on to get it down there reasonably quick? And what am I going to do to get it to slide through those weeds right where these fish are over by this buoy marker? Let me get out my big old bag of soft plastics. Not the most organized thing in the world. We got all kinds of stuff in here. What am I going to reach for? I think you all might know if you think about it hard enough. Let's see what we got. Let me see how fast I can dig in here without boring you dudes and gals. There they are. Here they come. Dark skies. Green pumpkin 6-inch robo worm. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, it's not going to stay 6 inches. It's actually going to become a more finessey than it already is soft plastic. So there I go. I just tore my corner off. If you have never seen that, that's how I get my robo worms out. They don't have that Ziploc type bag. So I tear a corner off the bottom corner and slide it out one at a time. Little single serve deal. So check this thing out. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep this 6 inches. I'm going to keep that a perfect 6-inch little deal worm. I'm just going to cut the tip off because this has got that screw lock type head. So I'm just going to get that little tip off so I get a nice square end on it. Just a tiny little 1/8 of an inch off. And I'm doing this off the line. I haven't tied it on yet, but just center that perfectly on that screw lock and get that screwed on perfectly. straight. And there we go. There's a flat side to this rubber worm, the salty flat side right there. So once we get to that flat side facing the hook, we're going to get that on exactly where the hook wants to go. It's going to be more like this. Scrunch it down just a hair. And there it is, guys. The ultra, mega ultra finesse little shaky head. So little green pumpkin, 6-inch robo worm with that 1/16 of an ounce Charlie's worm football style shaky head. So on 6-pound test, when I tie this on and start dancing it through those little bit of weeds, hopefully one of those bass will be interested enough to bite. Let's see how this works. All right, so I just dropped it in the water. It actually is sinking reasonably quick. So with that itty bitty skinny little worm and that 1/16 of an ounce on just really light, thin diameter 6-pound test, it's getting down there. So with this slick, calm conditions, I can't think of anything more ultra finessey than that. So again, I'm gonna spray it up with some crawfish scent, and I'm gonna drop it right on top of their heads, right on that weed line, right by my buoy marker, and see if I can come up with one. Okay, folks, and as the sun sets on my November mystery tackle box slam attempt, we say goodbye to the little itty bitty shaky head. If that couldn't get it done, we know there's some tough times out here on the local lake. Well, guys, it wasn't just a mystery tackle box slam attempt. It was an unboxing, and it was a rigging video. So hopefully you guys got something out of it. I know I did. It gave me a chance to get out here and challenge myself. But guys, if I can't get something on an itty bitty tiny little finesse bait like that, the bite is just off. The turnover is still happening. Lots of crazy things going on in the world right now on your local water. So just be patient. I'm looking forward to the mid 40s and 40-degree temperatures out here so I can get the jerkbait bite going. So just be patient, guys. Just get out there and have some fun and challenge yourself. As always, guys, I appreciate you joining me. As always, I appreciate you subscribing. And until we meet again, over and out.